go out of recess and back into planning and zoning. We have 3 cases today, and Mr. Scott, I'm going to give you the floor, and we'll go over the cases.
All right, thank you, sir. Our first case is 2024-0094. The applicant is Finding the Family, Inc. Deborah Hedgecorth is the representative, and she's here today. The current zoning on the property is A1 agricultural. They are requesting an R1 suburban residence zoning. The next sheet on the back of your cover sheet there shows the location of the property. It's on Johns Ford Road up around Rogersville. Surrounding land uses out there are mostly large tract agricultural and single family. The next sheet will show you the surrounding zonings. It's entirely R1 abutting the property. There is a little bit of AR and RR1 in the vicinity. And right on the top right corner you can see one that's R1 over there, kind of cut off. So the applicant is proposing the change for about a 5-acre parcel to R1 to be lawfully developed and utilized for a future primary use that would be acceptable in that zoning district. The applicant has let us know of their intent to upgrade the daycare home that they're currently running there into a daycare group home. And at P&Z there was a question on the definition of group home. All that means in our language or our code is they can go from 6 children in the daycare to 10 children in the daycare. It's not like a full-time group home that you would kind of normally think of. That's just the definition in our zoning.
So there's business hours. There's not.
Yeah, it would be a daycare, not a full 24/7 type facility. Yeah. So background on the parcel, there was a couple minor subdivisions that kind of split this larger tract into what it is. And then the building that's on that property currently was permitted in 2017, and it's had a couple of additional building permits pulled since 2017. So our land use plan would look at this area favorably for agricultural or residential uses. As far as compatibility goes, it's surrounded by other residential single-family type uses and other agricultural uses. It does have direct frontage on Johns Ford Road. There's no specific provisions for landscape or buffering at this time. No specific building design or permits at this time. That would go through the building inspections department. It does have an existing access off of Johns Ford that it's using. There are no known public utilities besides electric out here. No anticipated stormwater due to rezoning. No anticipated groundwater impacts due to rezoning. No mapped floodplains or sinkholes on this parcel. No expected traffic impacts. So as for staff's comments, the 2 big changes that this rezoning would have in reality, currently under that A1 zoning, it's a 5-acre minimum. Rezoning it to R1 would potentially allow them or someone in the future to go down to a 3-acre minimum. And then 2, it would allow them to go from the daycare home to the daycare group home. And again, the only difference there is 6 kids versus 10 kids. We did receive 1 person that spoke during the public portion of the planning and zoning hearing. They weren't opposed to the rezoning. They just kind of wondered why a daycare there. And the owner and their representative explained that they run a sort of family-based rehab type facility off of some of that property, and they use the daycare to watch the parents' children's while the parents go work during the day and help them hold a job and get back on their feet. So after reviewing the case and the public comments that were made on June 17th, the P&Z Commission made a unanimous recommendation of approval for this request. I'll answer any questions you guys have.
So the structure on the property is a residence?
We would view it as a single-family residential structure currently.
And it's protected by the new legislation that allows home-based businesses.
Yeah,
correct.
And daycares are
are
allowed
considered
in
home-based
that-
businesses.
in our zoning code as
So
well.
there's no argument there, in my opinion.
Yeah.
Since the state legislature changed the definition allowing all home-based businesses, that makes this perfectly legitimate, in my opinion. It's a home,
Mhm.
running a home-based business, that's going through the necessary requirements to change the zoning to be more applicable to what our regulations are.
Yeah.
So that's the only question I have.
And my understanding on their end, they already have the state licensing to house 10 kids. That's been in place. It's just our zoning regs
Mhm.
would neck them to 6 unless they have that different zoning. So
Okay.
they're just trying to stay in compliance and do what they need to do with the county.
Scott, I think I understand what is meant by the phrase rehab operation, but I'm not sure that's the best description. I think it
Yeah.
creates more doubt, not doubt, but more confusion than clarity there.
Right.
So say it one more time. What does that word rehab mean?
If you don't mind, they're here. I might defer to them because they can certainly explain what they do better than I can.
Pastor Hosey, there are 50 acres total, and those are used primarily to help women who have come out of abusive relationships or addiction, or typically the abuse and the addiction go together.
Okay.
And so women are coming out of that. They can stay somewhere on the 50-acre property in existing houses that are already, there's no approved or permitted. But we find oftentimes the kids might have been born addicted to methamphetamine, or the kids were living in that abusive relationship. So if you take a child who's been traumatized like that, they don't necessarily do well in a typical daycare. And so we found that the kids do better if they're in a dedicated daycare that takes into account the trauma they've experienced and the fact they may have residual effects from being born addicted to drugs and the abuse they might have suffered.
So you're more specialized to attend to their needs than just a general facility of someone.
That's correct.
But you are not doing actual rehab of adults, so you're not doing drug rehabilitation. That's what I usually think of when I think of rehab, or with the children. You're not doing that. What you're doing is providing a support base so that the parents can work and do the things that they need to do to be productive parents, or?
That's correct, yes. So there's no rehab itself going on this property.
Yeah.
But it's just a daycare for the kids. But that daycare is tailored to the fact that the kids are coming out of traumatic backgrounds and may have residual effects from being born with the drugs in them.
Sure, I understand that, and I applaud what you're doing.
So in essence, going back into your questions a little bit, this is not creating any additional burden on the roadways in the area because the people are already living in the vicinity. You're not taking someone out of Rogersville or Fordland that are coming there for it's all related. They're all.
That's exactly right. All the parents are right there.
Can I speak?
Yes, ma'am.
It would be good if, going to 10, we could go ahead and take 2 preschoolers from the Rogersville area. Like since in the school district, you can do reverse mainstream and putting children who have no disabilities into a resource room and help the other children. And so if we can do some mainstreaming in that by pulling a couple of kids, going to 10 kids, because we won't ever serve that many families, that many kids from the families at one time. So to be able to do that is going to help, number one, 2 families from Rogersville area or Sparta area or whatever, and then the rest of them would be in-house. So it would be, I don't want to say that it would never happen. It would be a great thing if that would happen. But it wouldn't really, I mean, it's not going to add any more traffic than 2 parents a day.
Okay.
And Scott, this is a reclassification of a 5 plus or minus acre tract, right?
Yeah.
So when you say on the last sheet that it would allow the parcel to be adjusted down from its current 5 acres to 3 acre minimum, that doesn't really have, I mean, they can't build another house on that. They don't have 6 acres.
No, it doesn't change the substantial facts of our zoning regulations and that kind of thing. Just, it's something to be aware of, that change in zoning classification.
Yeah.
If they ever decided to or something, it could be in the future.
Okay.
But
Yeah, they could in theory have a lot combination to tie the extra 2 acres back to something else to do. But-
Some of the property that's not the subject of this.
Yeah.
zoning. Okay, that's fine, that was just clarification, thank you.
I would just say, Ms. Deborah, I will commend you for, daycare is a problem everywhere. People wanting to work, needing to work, but don't know where to take their children or afford to take their children someplace. You're helping these adults. They've got a problem because they've got some children, and you're addressing that problem. I would commend you for that. Okay, any other comments or questions?
No, I make a motion to adopt the requested zoning change.
Okay, we've got a motion.
Second the motion, sir.
We got a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. It passes. Thank you very much.
Good to see you, Tim.
You too, Pastor Rosie.
Making it well?
Yes.
All right.
Really busy in Branson.
Yeah, yeah. It's been a little while since our paths crossed, but
I know.
it's good to see you again. Nice to meet you.
And you can come anytime because I love your accent. So,
Well, it's a Highlandville and Spokane accent, maybe.
I always tell people it's just hillbilly, that's all I can say about it.
Okay, well, he's a
People
hillbilly
think I'm from
attorney.
Louisiana, I say, no, it's just Ozark hillbilly.
Thank you, sir.
Brad, good to meet you.
All right.
Thank you.
Okay, second
Have a
case.
wonderful day.
Mr. Scott?
Yes, sir. So our second case is case number 2024-0109. The applicant is DMP Development, David Emerson, and their surveyor is here to represent them today.
Okay.
They're out of town currently. The current zoning is A1 agricultural. The request is AR agricultural residential. So the back of that cover sheet, just like the last one, shows you the property in question. It's at the southeast corner of State Highway K and Willoughby Road, just outside of Clever. The surrounding land uses include agricultural to the north and west, and then single-family platted subdivisions to the east and south. The next sheet there shows you the zoning around it. So it's A1, and then it's R1 residential in those subdivisions, and then that spot to the west and northwest is annexed into the city. So the applicant's proposing to change the zoning of the 30.8 acre tract to AR to be lawfully developed and utilized as a location for a future primary use, which would be acceptable within that zoning district. Background on the site, it doesn't look like there is a whole lot. It looks like it's just been farmland, it's been hayfield. Our future land use plan would note this property as appropriate for agricultural or residential uses. The subject parcel is located adjacent to other agricultural uses and also other single-family uses. Connectivity, frontage along the highway and along Willoughby Road. No specific provisions for landscaping or buffering at this time. Nothing on the building design side at this time. It does have a small existing approach off of Willoughby Road on the northeast side of the property there. We don't believe there's any public utilities there besides electricity. I did ask the developer when he was submitting this and kind of talking about his plans if Clever had utilities there, and he indicated to me that they did not have utilities available at that location currently. So stormwater, nothing anticipated currently that this would impact. Same with groundwater, no anticipated impacts, no mapped floodplains or sinkholes. As far as traffic goes, the rezoning, there would be no traffic impact due to strictly rezoning it. This one is a little weird. So the roadway is annexed by the city of Clever, but it still falls in the county's common 2 road district. So he indicated at the P&Z meeting that he did intend to subdivide this and develop it and do it similar to the one that's directly to the east there, basically just copy-paste it over. So he would have to work with the city or MoDOT if he took his entrance off the highway to get his approach and his access but then the road itself would be maintained by the county, and it would be under our regulations as far as construction and design goes, unless Clever wants to jump in and annex the roadway. So that's a conversation we may have to have with them as we go forward if he does develop it. So as far as staff's comments, the change in zoning to AR would allow him to go from a 5-acre minimum to a 3-acre minimum, to increase the density a little bit in a potential future subdivision. And then, if that major subdivision is proposed, staff reviews it through a sketch plan, and then the preliminary plat goes to planning and zoning for review and approval, and that would have a public hearing and a vote by that board. Public comment, again, kind of as I mentioned, the developer did speak and mention his intention to copy-paste that subdivision to the east onto this new parcel. And then at that Planning and Zoning Commission on the 17th, after hearing the facts of the case and the public comment, the board made a unanimous recommendation of approval for this request. I'll take any questions you guys have.
None from me.
Hey, Scott, how many homes can he build on that?
So his intent is quite literally to do what's on the east
that.
parcel over. So it'd be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. It'd be 8
Hey,
is what he's looking at.
all right.
But could do 10, potentially.
Potentially, I don't suspect he will. So DNR, when you go above 6 tracts that are under 5 acres, you have to submit everything to them, and they have to look at your stormwater runoff and all that, and your septics, and then they have to determine your acreage size that you can do. So in this case, it's easier, quicker, cheaper, safer for him to do 2 5s and the 3s, because he won't be subject to that DNR regulation of having to go through that extra process and expense.
And he's not compact and contiguous to Clever. Is the 4.2-acre tract, is that inside or outside?
That one, I believe, is still outside.
So then he wouldn't be.
He is compact, though, because Clever annexed Willoughby Road.
You can't use the road.
They annexed just that section of road, so he could pull the property line off of that.
I don't think you'd utilize the roadway.
Yeah.
I think you got to be compact and contiguous with land mass, not the roadway.
My understanding on annexation is as long as you're touching it. That's why, like, if you look at Republic, they've annexed down that highway over there that comes into the county, and then they've grabbed a little piece in there. I don't know what they have there or what's going on, but it's a flagpole annexation is kind of the planning term where they grab a bunch of road and they get this big parcel.
We've
they
done
say,
it.
we're in the city.
We've done it here in the city of Ozark in the years past, and it was my understanding that that was not a legal use any longer to use flagpole annexation. The only reason I ask is just because we're talking about potentially 8 tracts, and but if the city of Clever does not have the ability, and not knowing what the topography is here, I mean, inside the city limits may be uphill, and not wanting to put a pump station in for 8 lots. Anytime we get near city limits, I always get a little cautious.
I understand.
Wanting to know whether or not they've asked for a revocable consent to annex or an irrevocable, consent to annex or not. Do we know that?
I don't know at this time. So Clever is not one of the municipalities that we have a formal urban service area with.
And I know their staffing is not the same as that of in Ozark or in Nixa. I don't know that they have a full-time planner, or if that's outsourced.
I'm going to guess they don't. I don't know, but I'm going to guess probably not.
I just want to make sure that everything's looked at through this process, that we don't compound any problems and
absolutely, and
or run into issues with DNR permits or theoretically, are we looking at 8 different wells on this site, or are we going to have a shared well?
Both options.
Okay.
It'll probably be 8, but I think Dave mentioned
potentially sharing, however that plays out with buyers.
Yeah, because sometimes that becomes a problem 15 years down the road, that you've got 8 houses on a shared well and nobody's getting along, or somebody's not wanting to pay their fair share, and because the properties have changed over. So these are the things I'm always thinking about that are 10 years down the road, that if we have all the answers today, that could help us. So that's all I've got.
Okay, very, very good. Any other comments or questions? If not, I'll entertain a motion.
I would make the motion that we approve that request for zoning change as presented.
Thank you very much. We got a motion?
Yeah, I'll second.
We got a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. It passes 3-0. Okay. Congratulations. Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Thank you for being here. Take care.
Thanks, Mark.
Okay, last case.
All right, so our last case for the day is 2024-0118, and the applicant there is Matthew and Tanya Price, and Ms. Tanya is here. The current zoning is A1 agricultural, the request is AR agricultural residential. So same as the other two, that back side of the front page there, I'll show you the location. It's off of State Highway VB, also in that Rogersville area. Surrounding land uses are agricultural and single-family residential. There is a parcel that's zoned C1 directly to the south of this parcel, but it looks like it's being used for a single-family residential. I couldn't really see any signage or anything that indicated it was actually being used as a commercial property.
Any history on it when it changed over?
I couldn't see anything that I could find, but obviously it's zoned C1, so it certainly could be in the future or currently used for some sort of commercial. So the rest of the zoning, it's surrounded by A1 and a lot of other AR, RR1, residential type stuff out there. As far as the project description here, they're requesting a changing of about 11.5 acre parcel to AR to be developed and utilized for what would be acceptable in that zoning district. Their letter of intent did propose subdividing this parcel into 3 new tracts. So background and history here, there was a couple of minor subdivisions that brought this parcel to be what it is today, done in 22 and 23. The property doesn't look like it's ever been developed. It looks like it's just been a hayfield historically. Our future land use plan would note this appropriate for agricultural and dispersed residential uses. As far as compatibility goes, it is around other agricultural and single-family uses and zonings. It does have direct frontage on Highway VB. At this time, no specific provisions for landscaping or buffering have been offered. No new building construction or design has been presented. Currently, the access does not have its own approach. It looks like the approach falls just north of this. Utility services, there's none that we're aware of besides electricity. No anticipated stormwater impacts, no anticipated groundwater impacts. There are no mapped floodplains or sinkholes here. No major traffic impacts anticipated. So as far as staff's comments, again, kind of like with the other ones, we'd go from a 5-acre minimum to a 3-acre minimum, which would open up the potential for as many as 3 new tracts to be created from this parcel. There was no public comment given at the meeting. And then at that meeting, the Planning and Zoning Commission made a unanimous recommendation of approval after considering the facts and providing the opportunity for public input on this case.
Okay.
Any questions?
Any comment or questions to Mr. Scott?
No, I was just curious as to what that, do you know what that lot is that's zoned commercial?
Me?
Yes, ma'am.
It looks like a residence.
Just looks like a home.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Having knowledge.
It's kind of curious. there's several businesses that are listed out in the area, but I can't find that one, so,
I don't know, I'm sorry.
okay, not a problem, not a problem.
And Scott,
Mhm.
am I reading this correctly, that the only access to that 11.468 acres is off of State Highway VV?
Yeah,
There's no
that's-
road bordering it anywhere else, right? So, okay, so if they did 3 tracks, they might have to get 3 separate driveway permits
Right.
at that point in time.
Yeah, or they could, if they brought that subdivision to us, we could encourage them to maybe share a driveway with one of them
Uh-huh.
and neck that down to 2.
Yeah.
That would also be less expense on their end because it's MoDOT. MoDOT's requirements are going to be a lot stricter and more expensive to build than if it was just a normal county road.
Yeah.
So it may be cheaper on their end to just do 2 and have a shared driveway. That's what we would certainly encourage.
Thank you.
And to let you know, we already actually have one permitted and put in, and we have the permit for another one. So I'll have that if you need it.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, thank you. Thank you. Any other comment or questions?
No, sir.
Okay.
This
I'll-
would require just a simple driveway.
Yes, that's all.
We're not looking at any road for the future.
No.
Is this, you're subdividing and selling off, or is this,
My son's going to keep one of them.
okay, so
and-
family?
Yes.
Okay,
yes.
no problem, no problem.
Okay.
All right, I'd make a motion to adopt, or pardon me, not adopt, but allow, what's the right word I'm looking for? Approve, thank you. Well, I wanted to say adopt, I guess bad habits die hard. Approve the zoning request from A1 to 8R.
All right, we
I
got
second that motion.
a motion and a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. It passes 3-0. So congratulations. Thanks for being here today.
Thank you.
That ends our planning and zoning. Is there any communications that we need to give out today? I have none.
I have none.
The only thing I might ask or request is, in the future, any of those things where we probably just haven't really thought about it maybe, but if we could get a letter from, like a Clever, we're close here, something from them that they're not requesting an irrevocable consent to annex off this property, there's nothing in, or whatever, just so that when I'm looking at it, I can see that Clever has no interest in this, to be
Right.
part of their city limits, they're, because the last thing I want them is to come back on us and say, dadgummit, that could have been annexed into our city and we could have
Right.
had that as whatever. So if we just had a letter of either support or a letter of denial that where their stance is, and even on any of them, if we've got some of these that we've done rezonings in what technically is inside the city of Nixa or technically inside the city of Ozark, but it's one of our little pockets. Just something coming from the municipality saying, no, we're not interested in this, and just keeping that dialogue and open communication going with their planning and development department. So
Yep.
if we can do that, that would be very nice. I appreciate it.
Yeah, that sounds reasonable. All righty. We are adjourned.
Perfect.
Thank you very much.